Last summer, I got to go to Scotland. And when I was in Edinburgh, the Edinburgh Festival was going on, and there's lots of music and dance and plays. And there was also some storytelling. So I made sure that I went to hear the storytelling. And it was in a building called the John Knox House. It was also called the Nether Bow. And it was in a special room that you went upstairs. And it was a square room. And the walls were white. And on the walls were cloth hangings that had something that almost looked like gravestone rubbings, but it looked like very ancient carvings, maybe made by the Pictish people, who were the first inhabitants of Scotland. So there in this square room, with these cloth hangings, the storyteller stood up, and he was dressed in a complete Scottish outfit, a kilt and a plaid over his shoulder, and a hat that he took off, and a lovely jacket. And he was a piper as well. And first, he played his bagpipes, and he walked slowly around the room. And then he sat down in a wooden chair and told stories. One of the stories that he told was this one, and it was about the castle Eilean-Donan. And later, on my trip, I visited that castle, so I got to see the place where the story was happening. And this castle is now made of stone, but in the ancient times they had made castles out of wood, so they were always burning. And this tells of the moment when they changed from wooden castles to stone castles. The castle Eilean-Donan is on Loch Durig, which is in the west coast of Scotland, very near the Isle of Skye. And I got to see it, and I got to take lots of pictures of it as well. Now, in Scotland, there are various clans, the families. And you know the different clans by the specific tartan that means that clan. The MacDonalds, or the McLarens, or the Mackenzies, or the Hendersons. But there's another thing as well, and not too many people know about this. They have specific animals that are sacred to them. And the Clan MacDonald had the raven that was their bird. It's not unlike the Northwest Coast Indians that have, the native people that have special animals that are on top of their totem poles. And also the Clan Matheson back, and the swan. Once in the forest, there lived a hunchback. Now you know what a hunchback is, a deformed person. And not only did he have a hunchback, but he also never spoke. He was mute. He could see and he could hear, but no one had ever heard a word come from his lips. And every day he would get up and leave his little hut in the woods, and he would go about the forest and he would collect firewood. And then he would take the firewood to the village to sell it. But as soon as he walked into the village, all of the children would call out, "Hunchback, hunchback, ugly, ugly hunchback!" And he sold the wood as quickly as he could, and he took the money and he bought what food he needed. And then he went back to the forest, where he was happy, where he had his true friends, all the animals that lived there. The birds would fly around his head and nestle on his shoulders. Foxes would sit on his lap. Squirrels would sit on his hands, and the deer would nuzzle his shoulders. And he fed them and was their friend. But there was one creature in the forest that he loved more than all the others. That was the beautiful white, mute swan who lived in the pond in the middle of the forest. All of the animals called her Our Lady of the Lake. And day after day, the hunchback would sit on the shore of the pond and watch the swan as she swam round and round. But she never came to him, and she didn't know why. Well, one day, the hunchback disappeared. And after a week's time, the people in the village began to say to each other, "Have you seen that hunchback?" And they asked the children, "Where's that hunchback that comes every day and sells wood?" And the children said, "We don't know." Well, if the people in the village missed the hunchback, you can imagine how the animals felt. All of the animals got together and had a little meeting, and the wren said, "I think I must go to his house and find out what has happened to the hunchback." So the wren flew to the hunchback's house and peered in the window. He was very sick. He was lying in bed. And the wren flew back and told the rest of the animals. And the wise owl said, "I think someone should tell Our Lady." And the wren said, "I'll do it." So the wren flew to the pond in the middle of the forest and fluttered about the swan's head. And all the animals were gathered on the shore of the pond, and as they watched, the swan slowly swam towards the shore. And they watched as she got out of the water and walked down the forest path to the hunchback's hut. She took her beak and opened the latch and went inside. The wren flew to the window and reported to the rest of the animals who were lining the path what was going on. And the wren said, "The swan is walking towards the hunchback's bed. And now the swan is laying her neck across his chest." The hunchback opened his eyes, and there was the creature that he loved most in all the world, right there with him. And he took his hand and he stroked her beautiful white neck. And then the swan took her beak and plucked a feather from her wing. And she took the feather and she plunged it into the hunchback's chest. The animals waited outside the hunchback's hut. And soon the door opened, and from the hunchback's hut came forth 2 swans, male and female. And they slowly walked down the path to the pond, and they swam around and around together. And it is said that all the mute swans in the world are descended from that pair in the midst of the forest. And no one ever saw the hunchback again. What happened to the hunchback?
Turned into a swan.
Right,
Yeah.
yes. So we're going to take a little break, and then we'll be back with a really terrifying story.
Listen to the heartbeat of the earth. All life depends on that beat. Help keep it strong. Call 1-800-THE-SOIL. Harmony, a partnership with a healthy land.
This is a story that I first heard in England 2 years ago. And then this past summer, I got it in a book that was recommended by a Scottish folklorist named Sheila Douglas. And also while I was at her house, she showed some videos of Scottish storytellers telling this story. And so I saw a traveling woman named Sheila Stewart telling this story. The name of the story is Apperly and Orangey. And it has a little song in it. And the song goes like this, and I'd like you to sing it along with me at the appropriate time. And here's the song. My mammy killed me. My daddy ate me. My sister Jeannie picked at my bones and put 'em between 12 great big stones. And I turned into a wee white doo-doo. A doo-doo is a dove, so it's in sort of a Scottish dialect. Well, once there were 2 little girls, and they had little pet names. One of them was called Apperly, and the other one was called Orangey. Now, Apperly's father was not Orangey's father. And Orangey's mother was not Appley's mother. It was a step-family. You see, Appley's father had married Orangey's mother. And for some reason, the stepmother hated Appley. And she made her do all the hard work around the house. And Orangey had nothing to do but play all day. Now, in many stories like this, you know, the sisters hate each other, but that's not the case here. Orangey loved Appley, and Appley loved Orangey, and Orangey racked her brain to think of a way to make her mother not be so mean to wee Appley, but she couldn't. Now, wee Appley's father, oh, he loved his daughter, and he brought her a pretty ring from the store, which she wore all the time. One day, the mother said, "Appley, come here." And Appley came. And the mother held up a pitcher. She said, "I want you to take this pitcher. I want you to take it to the dairyman and have him fill it with sweet milk and bring it back here. And if anything happens to this pitcher, I will kill you." So Appley took the pitcher, and she very carefully walked to the dairy, and she said to the dairyman, "Fill this up, please, with sweet milk." And he did. And she was walking home, as careful as could be. But she started to hear the birds sing, and it was such a lovely day. She began to skip, and as she skipped, she tripped and fell, and the pitcher was shattered into a million pieces. Appley sat right there on the road, and she cried, and she cried, and she cried, and she cried. And a man come by, and he said, "Wee lassie, why are you crying?" And she said, "I broke my mammy's pitcher, and she'll kill me." "No, she won't," said the man. "Yes, she will," said wee Appley. And he said, "Well, come, lass, I'll take you to the store. I'll buy you another pitcher." So he took wee Appley to the store, and he bought her another pitcher. And she went back to the dairyman, and she said, "Fill this with sweet milk again, please." And he did. And she walked home as careful as could be. And she went to the kitchen, and she put the pitcher on the table. But she knew that the pitcher was not identical to the one that she'd broken. And she thought her stepmother would find out. So she went and hid. Soon the stepmother came into the kitchen. "Appley, come here." And Appley came. She said, "Appley, did you break my pitcher?" "I did," said Appley, but a man bought me a new one." "Never mind. Sit there," said the stepmother. "Orangey, come here." And Orangey came. And the mother said, "Orangey, go get the axe." And Orangey had to. And the stepmother took the axe, and she killed Appley. And she chopped her up in wee pieces. And she took the bones, and she gave them to Orangey, and she said, "Go bury those in the backyard." And then she took the pieces of wee Appley and put them in the kettle that was boiling on the fireplace. And Orangey took those bones, and in the backyard it was covered with stones, and she put them there. And the father came home. "Oh, where's my wee Appley?" "Oh, she's out playing," said the stepmother. And the father sniffed. "Is it soup we're having for dinner?" "It is," said the stepmother, and she took a ladle and a bowl, and she filled it with the soup. And the father, he took a spoon, and he started to eat the soup. And at about the third spoonful, he looked down, and there was wee Appley's finger with a ring on it. And oh, he let out such a howl and a moan, and the father and Orangey were crying and crying, and they carried on like that for months and months. And after a while, Orangey came in, and she said, "Daddy, you know, I see I see a wee white dove flying around the chimney and around the backyard, and sometimes that dove talks to me in wee Apple's voice. Well, it was getting on towards Christmas, and you can believe that in that household they didn't feel like celebrating. So the wee white dove that was flying about the chimney flew to the village, and all the shops were ready for Christmas, don't you know? And the wee white dove flew into the jeweler's shop, and the bird said to the jeweler, "If I sing you a song and you like it, will you give me anything I ask for?" "I guess so," says the jeweler. And so the dove sang, "My mammy killed me, my daddy ate me, my sister Jeannie picked at my bones, put 'em between twa great big stones, and I turned into a wee white doo-doo." And the jeweler said, "That's a grand song. What would you like?" "A gold watch, please," says the dove. And then the dove flew to the toy maker's shop. And there it was filled with beautiful toys, all for the Christmas season. And the dove said to the toy maker, "If I sing you a song and you like it, can I have my pick of the toys?" And the toy maker said yes. So the dove sang, "My mammy killed me, my daddy ate me, my sister Jeannie picked at my bones, put 'em between twa great big stones, and I turned into a wee white doo-doo." And the toy maker says, "That's a grand song. What would you like?" And the dove said, "That beautiful big doll." And then the dove flew to the ironmonger's shop, where the man made all sorts of things out of iron. And the dove said to the ironmonger, "If I sing you a song and you like it, can I have whatever I want?" And the ironmonger said, yes. So the dove sang, "My mammy killed me, my daddy ate me, my sister Jeannie picked at my bones, put 'em between twa great big stones, and I turned into a wee white doo-doo." And the ironmonger says, "That's grand. What would you like?" And the dove said, "Your sharpest axe." Now back at the house, no one was celebrating. They were all sitting around crying, and suddenly from up the chimney comes a voice, "Daddy, Daddy." And wee Orangey says, "I think that's wee Apple's voice." And the father says, "What you want, sweet Apple?" And the dove says, "Stand in the fireplace and you'll get something nice." It was a great big huge fireplace, so he could walk right in, and the fire was still burning next to him, and he didn't get burned at all. So he stepped into the fireplace, and down the chimney falls a gold watch. And then the voice says, "Orangey, Orangey, stand in the fireplace and you'll get something nice." So wee Orangey stands in the fireplace, and down the chimney falls a beautiful big doll. And then the voice up the chimney says, "Mammy, Mammy, stand in the fireplace and you'll get something nice." Well, the stepmother thinks, well, maybe it'll be a new dress, maybe it'll be some jewelry, maybe it'll be a new hat, and she runs into the fireplace, and down the chimney comes the axe and cuts off her head. And that was the end of her.